deep in each other's necks and unwilling to break the clinch for fear of bleeding to death. I think that's brilliant. Hi Cameron. I'm Fred. I'm 59. I live here in Oxford. I'm a carpenter. And I'm not entirely sure how seriously I'm going to take all this, but we're going to see how it pans out. Let's go to work. I didn't buy these shoes. These shoes, where are they gone? Oh, they're here, okay. These shoes, Exhibit A, boots really. I didn't buy them. Emily, my wife, who's over there, bought them for me because she said that my boots needed to be replaced because they were too scruffy, they were crap, and they were falling apart. And she came home with these boots, and they were really quite expensive boots, and they look fantastic. But actually, I've never liked them because they're too small. That I wear, look at me, I don't dress smartly. You know, I don't really know how to dress smartly, but when I have to, because somebody's died or somebody's getting married, then I put on the smart shoes rather than my working boots. This past few months, when I tie my laces in the morning, I want my left knee and my left leg not to be swollen at the end of the day. I spent too long on my hands and knees and or climbing up and down ladders and up and down scaffoldings, and my knee gets really swollen. So when I take my boot off at the end of the night, when I get home, it's like I've got a balloon in my leg, you know, where the boot grips the ankle there, the flesh is all swollen over the top of it. Like everybody else, there are days when you think, why am I doing this job? It's just ghastly, I don't want to do this today. I want to be anything else. I want to be an astronaut or a sewer cleaner or something, anything, rather than what I do. There are other days when, you know, I won't even tie them up, I'll just tuck the laces in. I can't wait to get to the workshop because I'm building something that I really want to build. There are days when it's the most exciting thing in the world to do what I do, and other days when it's just hell on earth. I came from, I grew up on a farm in the middle of absolutely nowhere. We had no neighbours, we had nothing. There was a barn you could see from the attic window, you could see a neighbouring barn, and I think a church steeple, but that was it. So any city is kind of the opposite of that. But this one, which is a very beautiful city, I mean, at least the centre of the city is a very beautiful city, and however long I've lived here, I never cease to notice that. I mean, I'm one of these idiots who looks above the shop line at the buildings above. I've always done that. I look at what's there all the time, and I'm fascinated by it. And I'm reminded by the children, because they do the same thing too, and they did from when they were very small. When Nell, my daughter, she was 3, maybe 4, I don't know, really small. And we're walking down Broad Street. You know, and I know Broad Street like the back of my hand, really. I walked up and down it 1,000 times. And I'm holding her hand, and we're just getting to the traffic lights to wait to cross the road. And she says, "Daddy, why is there an elephant on that roof?" What? An elephant? Where's no elephant? And there is. There's a carved elephant, or like a weather vane elephant on the top of, I don't know what it is, it's a school of Oriental Studies or something on the corner of Holywell Street and Cat Street. And I'd never noticed it. And she, because she's 3 years old, and she's, you know, everything is kind of exciting. Everything out there is new sensations to come pouring in. And she clocked the elephant on the roof. And I was sort of jealous, actually. You know, I mean, generally, you can think, well, because we don't walk down the streets with that kind of attitude, unless we're in a completely strange town, we're being a tourist for a day and going to wherever it might be, and we're never going to go there again as long as we live. We need to absorb as much as we can because we've got to get the bus at whatever time it is. That's when you do it, but when you walk down your own street, you don't do that stuff anymore, and I think that that's missing a trick. So I try and do that if I have the time. Walking through on a Saturday morning when I'm doing the shopping, what have I not spotted before? Have I imagined myself in someone else's shoes? Yeah, everyone has. When you're small, you look at your parents and think, yeah, how am I going to do when I do what they do? Yeah, and I say I'm a farmer's son, and my dad was a farmer's son, and so on and so on, so back to, you know, the Ark. And the assumption was always, you know, I'm the firstborn, well, that's what you're going to do. And I couldn't wait not to do that. My brother, my next youngest brother, is a farmer. He hates it. You know, he's 2 years younger than me, and it just drives him mad. And I think, well, I'm sort of glad I don't do that. I'm not saying that, you know, my life has been a model of, you know, sense or whatever else from having run away from being a farmer, but yeah, I imagine myself in my father's shoes and thought, no way, can't do it. And yeah, you do. You imagine alternative existences for yourself. Sure you do. People get asking me, see, if we'd have filmed this outside, you'd have the glowing backdrop of my unfinished shed at the bottom of the garden. And everyone said to me, we had a party here last night, and everyone's saying, so what's it going to be? And I said, well, it's fairly obvious what it's going to be. I mean, it's going to be what it is, only finished. It's going to be a shed. What are you going to do in it? Is it going to be a workshop? I said, no way. I'm not going to have a workshop at the bottom of the garden. It's, you know, I'm going to lock the doors and keep the children out. You know, it's going to be I don't know what it's going to be. It's probably where the children are going to go and lock us out. But I sort of thought about it a bit. I said, well, maybe it is. Maybe that's where I, you know, get a second life down there and start something that I never started years ago. So that's the thing that both of us, if we could go down to the shop on the corner and buy something that would instantly improve our lives, we'd buy some sleep. But they don't sell it down there. Freedom of movement, yeah, freedom of movement seems to be, well, it's up for debate, isn't it, at the minute? Everyone's arguing about it. It seems a no-brainer to me. Of course there should be freedom of movement. We live in a world, here comes the ideological bit. Late capitalism, if this is late capitalism, might God help us be early capitalism, I don't know. But late capitalism says we live in a global market and therefore we need the right to make things and sell them to people right way around the other side of the world, whether they want them or not. And it seems to me that you can't disconnect that from the freedom of consumers or the makers or the people who do the work that makes the goods that the people then sell to other people around the world. Those people should have freedom to move to or from the work if they want to. In other words, economic migrants, well, it's obvious, isn't it? Of course people are going to move for work. They're going to move because they can work and thereby give themselves a better standard of living. That's obvious, of course they're going to do that. But when have they not done that? Which of us have got families of whom it can be said nobody in our family's ever done that? You know, I've got a cousin who's older than me, who's, how old is he going to be now? He's 70. And when he was 21 or 2, he went, as they used to say in those days, out east. He went to Hong Kong, fetched up in Thailand, where he settled, he married, and where he lives now. He's retired. He and his wife live in a funny little place up in the hills in Chiang Mai. What was he? Was he a political refugee? He probably didn't like the Macmillan government very much, but I don't think he was a political refugee. He was an economic migrant. So, you know, I know he's only one person in my family, but there he is. He went off to Thailand and there he still remains. Happy as Larry as far as I can work it out. My way of going through life, I don't have a way. I squabble my way through life, really. Argue my way through life, I don't know. Clatter my way through life, I don't know. I mean, I'm not one of capitalism's success stories, boys and girls. You know, I'm a way of not doing it right. If I try and stand aside and say, you know, account for yourself, young man, not old man, I would say that I pissed away all my advantages pretty comprehensively when I was younger. Didn't believe in material success, you know, money, foreign holidays, fast cars, all that sort of stuff that just seemed to be the default position for everybody that I grew up with. That's what they all wanted. And I wasn't interested. I'm still not really. I don't really give a monkey's. I have enough money to live on. Nobody starves in this house. And actually the house very nearly belongs to us. And some people would call that a success story. Me, I think it's daft actually. It means nothing really, does it? You know, it's just a machine for living in. and that it belongs to us and it's worth a stupid amount of money means nothing unless we want to go and live in a tent in John O'Groats or something, which presumably will leave us some spending cash to buy the fast cars that we're supposed to be missing. I'm still not interested in that stuff. And I rather hope my kids aren't interested in it either. I don't know how that will pan out. Well, if I get the shed finished, I'd like that to be my testimony. I have left traces. I mean, obviously there's a bit of DNA floating around the kids and that kind of stuff, and I rather hope they don't let me down. I've made some things which have lasted so far, and which I rather hope will outlast me. So, I've built some furniture. I've built a lot of scenery for theatres and TV and films and stuff, which is utterly ephemeral, but it crops up on ITV4 every now and again if you're interested in the evening. All my 80s work is still visible. You can watch lots of TV shows that everyone's forgotten about now, but every now and again you kind of go, I made that. The real secret that I have, and I don't know if it's a realistic secret, is that when I don't have to go to work every day anymore, not that that day will ever come, because actually God knows the bills won't get paid if I don't, I want to make pictures. Because the one thing in the whole of my life that I'm most jealous of is the capacity to make art. I don't mean necessarily visual art, but music, writing, whatever else. In a sort of parallel universe, that's what I would be doing. Okay, where are my new shoes going to take me? Ideally, that's where they take me. They take me to where the fun stuff is, as long as we can pay some bills along the way. So that, in a nutshell. When I was a kid, my mum died when I was very young, so I never, she's still I'm a little child when she's still alive, so I have no concept of what my relationship might have developed with her. But my dad, like me, was an older parent. Okay, so I was born when he was in his mid-40s. My kids were born when I was in my mid-40s. So the teenage years, terrible tension. It's all coming on now. It's all going to happen. And then suddenly, when he's an old man and I'm a young man, you get a relationship back, and he starts to tell you stories, and you think, I must hear this stuff. You've got to write this stuff down. Of course, we never did. So I remember some of those stories, and I can get some corroborating evidence from my brothers. But on the one hand, I've got stories of my own, which I figure, well, that might keep them amused on a rainy night. But also some of my dad's stories, which are now, prehistoric. We're talking about stuff that happened to him in the 1920s, down nearly 100 years ago. I mean, if he was still alive, he'd be 102 now. That's a long time ago. And stories that he learns, these are handed down stories. They're mostly daft stories with daft punchlines, but they are stories, and he told them so often that they became well-oiled machines that even when you knew them, as I did, and I do still know some of these stories, I knew how they're going to end up. I still like the way that it arrives at its destination. And I started putting these things down for the kids. Actually, the life story from beginning to end is very dull. I was born, I was educated, I worked, I died. Well, that bit hasn't happened yet, but it will come. That's it. There isn't much else, really, for most of us, is there? Unless you look at all the little tangents and all the little bits on the side. That's where people become interesting.